I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, but I also grew up part-time in the Florida Keys. So I grew up between Miami and the Keys, constantly being in the water, learning about sustainability, and I always knew that I was going to study marine science in some fashion. I'm a senior at the University of Miami, and I'm double majoring in marine science and geology with a minor in climate policy. One morning, I was reading the newspaper and I read an article about a federal climate change lawsuit where 21 kids were suing, at that time, the Obama administration for climate change. And I thought that that was something we could probably definitely use here in Florida. So when I read about that lawsuit, I was like, oh my God, I want to do that here in Florida. So I reached out to the team of lawyers at an organization called Our Children's Trust. They're the lawyers who are helping with all of the lawsuits all across the United States. And I asked them if they were doing something similar or were interested in doing something similar in Florida. And they said that they actually just started looking into it. So over the next 3 years, we started to put together a team of lawyers. And what's really cool about the case is that all of the lawyers are working pro bono for free. So as plaintiffs, we're not getting any money. The lawyers aren't getting any money. This is purely for the environment's advantage. So what exactly we are suing for is we're basically, simply put, just asking the government to do their job. So there are two documents specifically that we are talking about. One of them is the Florida Constitution, and another one is called the Public Trust Doctrine. And both of these documents say that the Florida government must protect the environment, including public trust resources. And that includes the land, that includes the water, and we believe that it also includes the atmosphere. So in suing, we're asking the state to acknowledge that those public trust resources include the atmosphere. And then once they do, we're asking the judge to require the government to create plans and laws to start to cut back our carbon emissions and pretty much cease the use of fossil fuels, because that's what's causing the climate change crisis. My suggestion would be to work with your local politicians. At the city and county level, what I've seen is whether you're working with mayors or commissioners or just environmental offices in general, they're much more willing to listen to the youth perspective. What you have to say is really important to them. And that's where I've gotten most of my work done. I think that the youth generation, the vast majority of us understand the gravity of climate change. This is the biggest crisis that we'll ever face in our lifetime, in my opinion. And I think that how we go about solving it will define our time here on this planet. And I think that we know that.
I work here at the University of Florida in the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, and now I do operations for the land grant part of the university. I've done things like in the community, for example, here we used to have a very large amount of an invasive species of a weed called air potatoes, and over the years they would have in January the Great Air Potato Roundup, which meant on a Saturday they would get as many community volunteers as you could get, and you would go into the woods and basically pull down all these weeds. And it really brings me joy to see the connection between what IFAS does and the positive impact on citizens in the community. The leadership of environmental organizations locally tend to be older and white folks. It's time for the next generation to decide, do you need a different organization? Do you want to run this organization? But we're sort of ready for the next generation to jump into the leadership spots. You still need the hands-on stuff. You need young people who are passionate about the environment. You need people willing to make change. You know, people think, I want to do X and that will support the environment. And I would just say, there are so many ways to support the environment, and looking for ways to be really productive and constructive, I think, is really positive.